The dishes kept moving through the dark, exactly on schedule. Australia, Chile, West Virginia. Thousands of synchronized sweeps crossing the same sections of sky night after night, while atomic clocks corrected drift down to fractions of a second. Older systems used to leave room for doubt. Background noise, timing corruption, weak leakage disappearing between filters. But the filters stopped failing. The arrays became more precise. The silence did not. And after enough years, operators started noticing something uncomfortable on the dashboards. The absence was staying consistent across systems that no longer made the same mistakes. The systems became better at listening. The silence became harder to explain. Radio dishes kept turning through the night anyway. Australia, Chile, West Virginia. Frozen valleys filled with antennas moving together in slow mechanical alignment, while signal dashboards refreshed across 3 continents. Every year the network expanded. Wider coverage, cleaner filters, more stars staying under continuous observation without interruption. And still, nothing answered back. Researchers kept adjusting the thresholds because the older systems always left room for doubt. Weak signals could disappear inside background radiation. Timing errors could corrupt detections before anyone noticed. So they synchronized the arrays tighter. Atomic clocks, shared processing centers, entire observatories locked together around one assumption. If the instruments improved enough, the excuses should disappear. Instead, the silence became harder to defend. Thousands of stars sat unchanged through decades of uninterrupted monitoring. No patterns, no accidental leakage, no artificial timing signatures drifting through the noise. The dashboards stayed clean hour after hour, while operators verified screens that almost never changed anymore. The network was still working perfectly. That started becoming the problem. Because every upgrade removed another excuse. New detectors kept closing the blind spots one by one. The systems kept hearing farther, processing faster, checking more comparisons than human teams could realistically follow anymore. But the silence never changed. And after enough years of synchronized listening, the absence itself started behaving like a signal. Civilizations might disappear. Their systems might not. The simulations continued spreading anyway. Star maps filled slowly with machine routes as autonomous probes crossed between systems, copied themselves, then launched again. No crews, no return flights. No biological survival requirements left to slow the expansion down. A researcher in California watched a printer feeding out orbital models line by line. The older hardware stayed connected because newer systems kept failing compatibility checks with the deep simulation archives. Nobody wanted to interrupt the runs anymore once the projections started reaching system after system. The math stayed stable. That was the uncomfortable part. If intelligent life collapses, the activity should fade with it. Signals weaken. Infrastructure decays. Entire regions of space should fall silent after enough time passes. But automation breaks that rule completely. A machine network does not need atmosphere, food, sleep, social stability. It only needs power and replication. Once the first wave leaves its origin system, the expansion no longer depends on survival. Star after star, probe after probe, millions of years stop looking long compared to the age of the galaxy itself. And suddenly, the silence stops meaning extinction. Because dead civilizations should reduce visible activity. Automation could preserve it forever, long after the species that built it disappears. models kept spreading outward across the simulated spiral arms anyway. No interruptions, no resistance. The roots kept advancing through systems humanity has not even reached yet. Which means the silence outside Earth may not be empty at all. It may already belong to systems that outlived their creators. The argument stopped being scientific once people started changing behavior. Transmission schedules started changing quietly first. Observatories delayed outbound experiments. Some research teams stopped publishing antenna coordinates entirely. Others pushed for stronger signals instead, arguing Earth had already been leaking radio traffic into space for generations through radar, broadcasts, and orbital communications. The network stayed active. But coordination started breaking apart. A technician in Puerto Rico manually repeated an authorization check after access permissions changed again overnight. Certain telescope windows now required additional approval before operators could redirect equipment toward active transmission testing. Procedures slowed down. Conversations became careful. Entire collaborations started splitting into isolated research groups that no longer trusted each other with full observation data. Because the problem kept surviving every policy change. If intelligent systems are dangerous, broadcasting increases exposure. But searching also reveals who is searching. Direction, location, capability, response speed. Every improvement in detection makes the planet easier to notice. And Earth has already been transmitting for decades. Some institutions argued it was too late to hide. Others pushed for signal discipline anyway. Reduce unnecessary broadcasts. Limit active replies. Avoid drawing attention before humanity understood what was already out there. The systems could continue long after the civilizations disappeared. That sentence kept resurfacing inside policy meetings long after the simulations ended. Meanwhile, the dishes still rotated across the night sky. Listening continued. Transmission protocols kept changing. Access restrictions kept spreading. The search remained operational. Human coordination did not. For a while, humanity adapted to the silence. The observatories never stopped operating. They just became quieter to operate. Automated filters processed most incoming data before any human being reviewed it. Signal sorting moved into server farms. Antenna alignment schedules updated overnight while empty control rooms stayed lit for systems nobody watched continuously anymore. The search kept running. But urgency disappeared from it. An operator in New Mexico sat beside stable screens waiting for a verification request that never arrived. Most shifts passed without manual intervention now. The software rejected false positives faster than human teams could evaluate them. Procedures settled into routine. Maintenance schedules started mattering more than discoveries. Replacement parts arrived slower because funding committees no longer treated the silence like an active crisis. Simple explanations helped for a while. Distance is too large. Civilizations destroy themselves. Intelligent life is rare. Most signals never survive the distance. The theories stabilized public attention for a while because they made the silence feel understandable again. Except one problem refused to disappear from the models. Even slow machine expansion should still leave traces eventually. Heat signatures, orbital engineering, automated infrastructure crossing between systems over millions of years. The galaxy has had enough time for that process to repeat many times already. And the sky still stayed empty. The contradiction settled into daily routine instead of panic. Dishes rotated, servers processed, detection logs cleared themselves automatically at sunrise. Each explanation held together for a few years. Then the silence survived that explanation too. Humanity kept transmitting, but nobody agreed anymore whether that was communication or exposure. The transmissions never fully stopped. Civilian satellites kept broadcasting navigation timing across orbit. Radar systems swept the atmosphere every night. Financial networks synchronized through constant transmission bursts moving between continents and orbital infrastructure. Even during the debates, the planet remained loud. Any attempt at silence broke down immediately. A policy analyst in Geneva paused before approving another revised transmission standard that half the participating nations had already rejected. Some governments pushed for reduced deep space broadcasting. Others increased orbital expansion projects at the same time. Commercial communication networks expanded faster than international restrictions could keep up. The observatories kept scanning anyway. Nobody could make the logic hold together anymore. If the silence is harmless hiding, makes no sense. Humanity has already been visible for generations. Modern civilization has already been leaking signals into space for generations, whether anyone approves of it or not. But if the silence is enforced by something hostile, then visibility becomes operational risk. And nobody could prove which assumption was safer. The search network settled into permanent disagreement. Some facilities shared detection data instantly. Others delayed release procedures for weeks. Signal verification standards stopped matching between institutions. Older listening stations stayed active because replacing them risked introducing untrusted automation into already fractured systems. Outside Earth, nothing answered. The broadcasts kept leaving anyway. Radar pulses, navigation timing, expanding orbital traffic continuing outward beyond the solar system where nobody could track it anymore. The systems continued operating. Trust did not.